here tonight to talk about change. Hey, who's not had problems with change? There's got to be, everybody in the room has definitely got to learn something from Tony tonight. Please give him a super warm welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Roy. So I was invited here to do something interactive, so I hope you don't mind. I was asked to do interactive, so you're going to do interactive. And before I talk about myself, I want to get you involved. So this is your opportunity to either meet someone new or someone you're next to. If you're on your own, if you can just pair up with someone, go and join them. So we've got everyone in pairs. So you can work with your neighbour. If you haven't got a neighbour, just shuffle over to join someone else. I'm going to get you to stand for about 5 minutes, but what I want to make sure is if someone's not comfortable for standing for about 5 minutes, talk to your partner and agree to sit down. All you need to do is be able to turn about 180 degrees on your chair so you don't face them. That's all we need to do. But I would invite the rest of you to stand if that's possible. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you in a moment, if you stand up, your pairs, if you're comfortable. If you're not, sit down. I'm going to ask you to turn away from your partner in a minute, and you've got 60 seconds to change 5 things about yourself. Okay, we should be getting about ready. And what you're going to do now is you're going to turn to face your partner, and you've each got to see in 2 minutes how many things can you spot that's changed. So turn back, face each other, see how many things you can spot. Okay, so by show of hands in a moment, how many people spotted 5 changes in the appearance of the other person? Wow, okay. 4?
Yeah, definitely.
Few, yeah. 3? 3, quite a few. 2? And 1. So it's a bit of an even spread there. So what we're going to do now is you're going to get another 60 seconds to change 5 more things about your appearance.
Oh, no.
What? Why don't you want to do it? So this is normally the reaction. If I do this with organisations, teams, that's the kind of reaction. Or this is an HR viable, whatever it is, violation. So what happened there? When I asked you to change 5 things about your appearance, what was your initial reaction?
You've gone far enough.
I'm out the door.
The line has been drawn.
And then when I asked you to spot 5 things in the other person, did you notice the energy leap in the room? What was different? Because it's all about change, isn't it? One was about you and one was about the other person. And you notice your reaction changes. And when I asked you to do 5 more things, how many people have already started putting things back on?
Nobody wants to smell my feet.
No one associates. Well, that's very kind of you. But what we were doing there, and I don't like this term, but we were kind of returning back to our status quo. We're trying to make things right for ourselves again. So I just wanted to share that little exercise just to help you think about change as it pertains to you, as it pertains to other people. So thank you very much for indulging me. Take your seats.
You're never coming back, Tony.
So I think Royd's saying I'm never going to be invited back again because I've overstepped so many boundaries there. But my name is Tony Richards. As Royd said, I do a lot of Agile coaching, but I also I exist in this kind of weird Venn diagram. I do a lot of professional coaching. I do a lot of organisational change. And what I'm talking to you about today lives right in the centre of all those things. And Sarah has gifted me with her session. She talked about set a goal, deal with that imposter syndrome. This is going to talk about you've set the goal, you've had a go, and you've hit all sorts of obstacles. So how do we deal with it when it gets hard? How do we keep on the course and how do we reach that goal? So the purpose I'm sharing you today is I'm going to share some things that will help you explore what's getting in your own way and help you think about it in a different way, hopefully. So another question, which of these do you treat with the most suspicion? Shout it out. Radishes. Chocolate cake.
Because I say that I love
sweet stuff and chocolate cake, but you know when you go to a country pub and have their chocolate cake, sometimes it tastes like they've just got it out of the freezer and I'm like, it's not nice.
So your experience in the past was chocolate cake tastes a bit rubbish, so you're a bit suspicious of it now. And
How far wrong can you go with a radish?
can I use that in future? So we all believed and treated these with suspicion at one point in time. When we first emerged into this world, both of those were suspicious to us. They were unknown. We'd never had them. We didn't have an opinion on them, so we treated them with suspicion. Normally what happens with things like this, they're introduced to you. If you've got anyone who's got a very small child, this is great to watch. If they've never had chocolate before, watch their face, because they'll be kind of sussing out, should I or shouldn't I first, and then you see that kind of moment of, wow, this is amazing. But what happens is when you're introduced to these, a lot is being inferred by the person who's giving it to you and your relationship with them. Do you trust them? Are they looking after you? Do they have your interest in your best interests in their mind? So we are naturally inclined to treat everything with suspicion at the start. And the reason I'm sharing this is because there's a clever thing going on in our heads that sits under all of this. So I'm sure you've seen these pictures before. I know there's a gentleman there who did a lightning talk, I remember, last session, which started to cover this. But this is a very simplified version of what's going on between our ears now. And we've got these three kind of areas. I kind of talk about the outer one as your thinking brain, where you rationally think about things, you're analytical, you're logical. You've got the bit in the middle, the limbic system, which is deemed the emotional brain, because it deals with the sensations and how you feel things. And then finally, we've got this brain stem, which sits right at the top of your spine. And that's really sending the instructions to your whole body, what to do, based on what the limbic said, not the outer one. When the brain is calm, this part of the brain is a passenger, so it's not actually in control. This part is the driver, and this is really like the steering wheel, if you want to use that car analogy. So the brain is listening, or the brainstem is listening to the limbic system, and when you're calm, you've got a lot of voice there. You can say a lot of things. As soon as you sense threats, what happens is this thing shuts all of that off. So I don't know if you've ever spoken in front of people like this before. If you've never spoken before and you have that moment where you can't speak, don't be hard on yourself. All it is this got shut down by that. You had an emotional response to standing here talking to people. Suddenly you clammed up. You're like, I know the words, but I can't get them out. And it's a limbic system said, right, you're a passenger, but you're now on the roof of the car. You're not even in the car. You're going to have to wait and ride this one out. Now, if you're in this position and that happens, just breathe. Because if you breathe very slowly, what it does is it releases a whole load of chemical releases that changes the way that you are currently experiencing the situation. So you have to work with yourself to calm yourself back down. But why am I telling you this? The reason I'm telling you this is because the brain itself has a huge amount of, obviously, control over what we do, but it can't, this limbic system can't understand the difference between a physical threat and a social or emotional threat. So if we receive a threat, I don't know, some kind of email comes through to you at work, and you respond to it in that kind of angry tone, it's because you've triggered your limbic system. It's actually gone, I'm in danger here. It puts you into this like really kind of fight or flight sensation. And what it does, it releases a chemical, you've probably heard of it, called cortisol, floods it through your body, and all it does, it charges all your muscles up, gets you ready to do something. It's incredibly powerful. It hangs around for ages, but it completely neuters everything you're doing up here. The opposite you've probably heard of is dopamine. So if you're releasing that, that's the happy chemical. That kind of gets you in a kind of a good state. Cortisol is 9 times longer in the body than dopamine, which is why our social media tries to keep us going for another hit. Whereas cortisol, if they were threatening us on social media, we don't need much of it because it sits around for a long time. And why this is important is because even when we're doing things in our own best interest, sometimes this system can kick into play and it can really derail us. There's some hidden things happening under the surface that we're barely conscious of. And I'm going to share with you today some techniques that will try and reveal what's going on. And if you've had any kind of challenges getting through a goal, it might start to illuminate some different ideas on how you can approach it. So as I said, when the brain goes, it's just do it. Floods the body with chemicals, you've just got to get on with it. You're really not thinking things through in a logical way. And I'm using this analogy of the car way too much at the moment, but if you think of your organisation and the times you've been involved in an organisational change, or you're trying to get something done, and you're thinking, it's like wading through really slow traffic here. This organisation is so slow. Never forget, you're one of these cars. And what you're doing influences the drivers around you, and they influence you. So if you imagine your limbic system's tripping off, and then someone else is tripping off, and then someone, lo and behold, you're in this really slow moving queue. So there's a lot to be thought about around when you're in a team, where are we currently? Where's our state? Are we tripping off all over the place? And it's probably not a good time to do this. Do we need to get ourselves back into a great place for this conversation? So core insight here is, when change failed, it's not because you didn't want the goal. It's more often because there's this contradiction. We're a living contradiction between what we want and what we're protecting. And it sounds a bit weird, and I'll get into a bit more about what I'm saying there, but it's between what we desire and what we're protecting. We are always protecting something, and it'll be different for all of you. Different for me, different for you, different for everyone else. But we've committed to protect something, and what I'm trying to help you to do today is to reveal what that is that you're committed to protecting, and working out, is it something I really do need to protect, in which case, carry on, or is it something I need to question now? So this idea of immunity to change, which is the subject of the talk, is that we have this kind of mechanism in our bodies that protects us, a bit like an immune system. So an immune system, obviously, when you get a cold and it hangs around for 3 months, the immune system is coming in and it's trying to bring you back, it's trying to repair you and restore you. However, the immune system can sometimes go wrong. So you hear of people having transplants of organs and they're getting rejected. The immune system has rejected it for whatever reason, and the surgeon might use some techniques or chemicals or medicine to alleviate that. But we would never say to the surgeon, oh, just remove their immune system. That would be a catastrophic thing to do, because the immune system is important to us. We need it. It keeps us well. And the same happens with our psychological thinking about problems, challenges, goals, is we have a mechanism that's similar to an immune system, and it's there for a reason. It's important. So we don't want to get rid of it. We want to understand it better. We want to understand how can we work with it rather than fighting it. So the kind of analogy I use is a rope, and I have one over here. So if you imagine a rope, your immunity to change is like a rope with 3 strands inside it, and there's obviously even further threads that make up each strand. But I'm not going to go into the detail of that, but at a broad sense, you've got this idea of a strand that prevents change. So it stops you in hitting your aspirations. That is joined by another one, which is around your management of your anxiety. So we all experience anxiety, and it's always there. It's never gone. But our immunity to change allows us to manage that and navigate it and use that to our advantage. And then finally, we've got our knowing, like our healthy kind of state of reality. And everyone's reality, I hate to break it to you, in this room is different. We all have different experiences and different lenses we use, but that forms our knowing. So those 3 strands, we obviously don't want them to pull apart. That's visually it looks bad, and it's as bad anyway in terms of our well-being. So we need them, and they exist for a very good reason, but sometimes they're just going to get in our way. So what can we do about it? Well, I'm going to share with you a way of mapping this out, and I put some sheets out on the chairs with a series of columns on it, and then there's a populated side with an example. So if at any point you're thinking, I'm not quite sure what he's on about here, you've got the example at the back to copy from if you need to look at something. But the idea of the immunity map is to start to map out what's going on when you're pursuing a goal. So we're getting to that time of year, aren't we, where we've got New Year's resolutions, we've got objective setting at work, we've got personal development plans, all these kind of goals popping up. So you typically put your goal, what you want to achieve, in the first column. There's 2 columns on that. I'll explain a bit why in a minute. Then you've got what you're doing towards the goal and what you're not doing towards it. And then we've got 2 more columns, which I will go into a lot more detail because this is really where the magic is. We have some competing commitments and some big assumptions. And when you can map this out for you and see it, and I can't describe how you're going to experience it, but when I did my first one of these, I looked and I thought, that's explaining a lot about where I am, why I'm there, why I keep hitting that wall. And I suddenly knew what it was that I need to really work on. So it's trying to reveal a hidden dynamic in how you are approaching a goal. The things that are kind of getting in your way, but you can't quite see them yet. If this isn't kind of clicking at the moment, don't worry, because we're going to walk through it. It's interactive to help you get a grip around it. So hands up if anyone made a New Year's resolution. Got a few hands up. And then of those people who had their hands up, who's still keeping that resolution? Only just, yes, and the hand went down. So New Year's resolutions are fraught with problems because we're often tackling the wrong thing. And credit to you, if yours is still going, that's brilliant. This Friday is the clincher. If you can get through Friday, that's quitter's day and you're on. You're off.
I don't think there'll be any issues.
Wonderful. So the idea of a New Year's resolution is we often pick, as I'll explain in a minute, we pick goals that aren't really what we want to change. We're picking things that are surface level, they're symptoms. And we need to get to what we need to change. So when we're making a goal on the immunity map, we need to make sure that whatever we're putting on there is something that we really want to do. If we don't want to do it, we can put it down and you know what happens. It's not going to happen. So if you don't really care about it, then it's probably not going to be the right goal. The technique I recommend to individuals, if they want to come up with a good goal, is go round people who you really value the advice of, whether it's your line manager, colleagues, your significant other, and say, what is one thing I could change that would have the biggest impact on me, you, whatever it happens to be, what you want to get, what's the payback? Because if there's no payback, the goal doesn't really land. But if you say, what's the one biggest thing, or one thing I could change that would have the biggest impact, and see what you're hearing, see what's coming back, they'll do the work for you. They'll create the goal, and then you have to decide, is it significant enough? Or do I need to just adjust it a bit to make it a little bit more pressing for me? So what I'm going to ask you to do now, before I show you that one, is I'd like you, in the very first column, just to do some brain writing. So the very first column is ideas of goals. Just write down as many goals you can think of that you want to set yourself this year. Don't judge them, just write them down. And now I'd like you to just look down that list of what you've got and which one of those really jumps out for you. My experience is often it's one towards the end because you've had to really push yourself. But what jumps out to you, and pull that into the next column, into the second column, which is column 1, very confusingly. So that's going to be your goal. That's your meaningful thing, significant, you really want it. It's not like I might do it, I want this. So pull that into your first column. So you've now got your goal, your meaningful goal, your column 1, your improvement goal. I'm going to introduce you now to Lucy Leader. So I'm just going to kind of go through this. So Lucy Leader, knocking it out of the park. Just joined a consultancy, used to be called EMIS. She's really, really got it under control. But there are some things that she's just like, I'm not really getting the vibe I used to. What I want to do is I want to feel more excited and inspired with what I'm doing. It's just not giving me that spark I need. So her goal in this situation is she wants to make the best of her qualities, her unique qualities, and really get out there and make a difference. Like use the things that really, really drive her. But sadly, when our life depends on it, sometimes these goals we fall foul of. So there's a medical study that I went through that's talking about doctors' research around people who are told about a heart condition. And what it discovered was if you take 7 people and they're given all the guidance and all the support and everything they need, only 1 in those 7 actually carry through and they make the necessary changes to remedy the situation. Now, I'm sure the other 6 people didn't want that to be the outcome. They didn't want to not follow the advice, but something was stopping them. Something was hindering them from doing it. The goal had a sense of urgency. I mean, it's your life. And there was a big incentive to change. Yet 6 out of the 7 people chose not to go there and 1 did. So we're really up against some tough odds when we're doing goals. You set a goal for yourself. If you use this as an example, those odds are really stacked against you. So you need to kind of work out, what am I doing? Why am I sabotaging this goal? So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at, what are you doing and what are you not doing? So when you think about it, there's some examples there. There's some on the back of the sheet as well. There might be things that you're doing, behaviours you're doing towards the goal you wrote down, and there may be things you're not doing that you think you should be doing. So in the column that's saying doing, not doing, just think about your goal in that first column and jot down, what am I currently doing towards it? And if there are things I'm not doing that come to mind, what am I not doing? So now going back to my friend Lucy Leader, she had this challenge that she wants to feel more excited and inspired at work, but she's feeling compelled to work in areas that are really not of interest to her. So she's actually doing the routine stuff that doesn't really inspire her. But she knows in her heart of hearts that's not what she wants, and that's not in aid of her goal. So when you're doing the doing, not doing, a lot of people at this point, if they were doing this kind of thing, that's it. I've just got to do more of the stuff I'm not doing. I might have to do less of the stuff I'm doing. That must be the answer. If it's a technical goal, technical in the broadest sense of the word over here, it might work because you might be able to change it. If it's an adaptive goal, and that's normally the things to do with the stuff between your ears, working on that tends to have no benefits whatsoever. You'll do it, but what will happen is this thing will start to put you back in the passenger seat, and it'll get you back on the road you were on before. So you need to kind of think about, is the goal adaptive? And a lot of the stuff about you and your thinking, your thought process lands in that adaptive space. So we've got to be careful that we don't think here, oh, there's the answer, that's what I've got to do. This is just data. It's not bad, good, or indifferent. It's insight about, well, that's the kind of thing I tend to do, and that's the things I don't do. That's interesting. But I want to know why. Why do I do that? So the reason we say don't do that is because we're dealing with symptoms there. They're the things we can see, we can experience the behaviours. If you focus on those, nothing will be fixed with an adaptive problem. And as you know from the world of Agile, if you're kind of doing an adaptive type of piece of work, if you try and treat it in a transactional way, it tends not to respond that very well. So what I'm going to invite you to do now, and this is quite hard stuff, and the first time you ever do this sheet, this is tough. The more you do it, the better you get at this, I assure you. It starts to improve over time. You have some hidden competing commitments. These are things that you have to hold and maintain. You remember our rope here? These are all hanging off this. So this rope that's inside us, this immunity to change, is holding these true. I don't want to appear lazy and incompetent, or I want to avoid conflict for fear of rejection. So you can think of kind of the goals that might go with these, or I prefer to maintain a sense of security and control. I don't want to take risks. So we've got this kind of hidden commitment in us that's saying, I've got to keep this. I can't dishonour that. But if I dishonour that by doing the goal, I can't live with myself. This is the contradiction now. So my next invitation is on column 3, just to see if you can surface from the not doing and doing what might be sitting below the surface. What's the hidden commitment that you're honouring that you can't break? So I'll bring Lucy up just if that helps. So you remember where she was. She's doing the things that she doesn't really want to do. And she's committed to being well regarded by those who evaluate her, not running any reputational, social, economic risks. And she doesn't like the idea of not looking successful. So have a think on yours. Are there any kind of competing commitments, even like seeds of ideas coming out now, that are holding you from doing what you need to do towards that goal? So we're beyond the symptoms here. We're going down into some of the causes, the things that you're holding. And when you land these, when you get them, normally you get a bit of a feeling inside as well. It's like, oh, I've been sussed.
It's revealing. It's not imposter syndrome. I am genuinely inadequate.
It's like a spotlight. It's like a sword door lands on you. Like, oh, I've been found out. And this is quite personal stuff, but if you can do it, it really has a tremendous impact on your achieving of goals. So you reveal some of these competing commitments, and we get that sudden dawning of, actually, it's me. I've been blaming all these other people for my goals not working, and this has been distracting me, this has been getting in the way. But really, when I come down to this competing commitment or these commitments, I'm doing this to myself. So we're derailing ourselves, and we do it for good reason, because we're trying to keep our own sense of self intact. By making that change to that goal, sometimes that changes us, and it's changing us away from something that we really value. So if we don't look after it, we're then kind of, well, I'm not really being good to myself. I'm doing this goal for someone else. And we start to make all these kind of logical jumps and reasonings for why we're not doing what we should. So the competing commitments, they're a start, but they're based on something. So originally, maybe recently or way back when, you started to believe something. And you remember I talked about the brain? Well, the limbic system, it's terrible in a good way of believing the first thing it's told. So it doesn't really question anything. If it's told something, it believes it. And it's really slow to change. So what we're dealing with here is, at some point in the past, we've told ourselves something, and I'm going back to your talk about the imposter syndrome. We've given ourselves this story, we've believed it quite quickly. Now changing that story is the hard work, because believing it was easy. The hard bit is actually getting out of that story or writing a new story. So the big assumptions are really getting underneath your competing commitment. So if you look at your competing commitment, whatever it is, ask yourself, what would happen if I didn't honour that commitment? So what would happen if I broke it? Is the world going to end? Is it going to really be detrimental to me? What are the catastrophic consequences that you're currently playing in your head that would happen if I break that competing commitment? And we're really surfacing here some of our underlying beliefs, the things that we believe to be true. And they may be true, by the way, but they may be not. And what I find is if I do this exercise with a group of people and they all land with the same kind of goal and they have similar doing, not doing, when we get the competing commitments, they go off in all directions. Everyone's got different competing commitments for the same goal. And everyone's got really different assumptions under the surface. So if you imagine in a team, this gets really complicated suddenly, because you're like, well, we're not changing. Why are we not improving? And it's because you've got multiple competing commitments, multiple assumptions, some conflicting with each other, that you're trying to rationalise to get to that improvement. So I'm just going to give you a moment now to see if you can surface some of those big assumptions. So just using those kind of prompts, what the kind of assumptions sitting beneath the competing commitment you came up with. And then jot that down in column 4. And again, I'll bring Lucy Leader up, share her big assumptions. I don't know how much you can read that at the back, it might be too small, but she's saying, I assume my safest route to success just to perform exceptionally well at the stuff I'm being asked to do. And it's well established. And I assume that if I'm not highly regarded, I'll be considered a failure. So she believes that. Doesn't mean everyone else does, but because she believes that, that's had an incredible power on her being able to do the goal, which is do this kind of interesting stuff I'm passionate about. So she's made this revelation. She's discovering that she defines success as playing it safe and pleasing other people. That's probably not what she wants to do with the goal. So she's now got to kind of work out, well, how can I start to tackle this stuff? Because this stuff is seated right deep inside my mind. And this is where we start to get into testing your assumptions. So you take one of those big assumptions and you say, what's the smallest little experiment I can run on that assumption to prove to myself whether it's true or not, to validate it or invalidate it. So much like you would if you're developing stuff and you're iterating stuff, this is the same kind of thing. You're going to iterate your big assumptions out one at a time. And this doesn't happen quickly, by the way. This is a progressive thing. You're kind of slowly dissolving this assumption in your mind you're then creating a new assumption that allows you to reach your goal. So it's about kind of dissolving one thing that's getting in your way, allowing a new one to emerge, and achieving your goal. This is why we call it an adaptive way of looking at change. So I'm gonna pause there. I'm gonna give you, I've got enough time, I'll give you a couple of minutes to talk to your neighbour and just share what's going on for you. You don't have to share the details on there, but what kind of insights are landing for you now? I feel so bad. I feel so bad because you were so energetic there. I just want to hear maybe a couple of voices. What have you learned from the person next to you? What kind of just sprung out of nowhere through that conversation? Anyone want to share?
No one likes to look like they failed.
No one likes to look like they failed. And I am guessing, and this is an assumption, I'm going to test it now, this is based on their idea of what failure is as well. Because one person's failure is not necessarily another person's. So, yeah, no one likes to look like they failed. What else?
I think sometimes it's hard to spot how you are, what's the root cause, what you're failing at.
Oh, actually know that it's taking place?
Yeah, kind of reverse engineer I suppose what point it could be going wrong. It's leaving the rails. Maybe.
So like that early warning sign that it's...
Yeah, something like that.
Feels like an insight that's kind of still in your mind there. We've done our whole sheet now. What you'd normally do at this point is you'd create little micro experiments, little things that will validate or invalidate those assumptions. And the reason we're doing that is because the assumption is normally where all of this problem is sitting, is there. If you can tackle this, that lot starts to fall into place. But you iterate your way there. So you don't tend to do it in one and done as well. So I don't want to disappoint you. This isn't a quick fix, but it is long lasting. If you do the work, it sticks, and it sticks for good because you've rewritten what's there. So what about the team? What about if you were going to go and take this now and you go, oh, I went to this talk, Agile Yorkshire, there was a very tall bloke and quite a tall woman beforehand, and he just kept badgering on about a rope. But there's this form, if we all fill it in, everything's going to be fine. How's that going to go? So if you're going to do this with a team, what I would recommend, and I've done this in retrospectives or improvement sessions, get them all to do the exercise personally first so they get a feel for it and they do something that's important to them. Only then, when they're kind of familiar with it and there's a bit more trust in what you're about to do, I would then do it on a team goal. So if you've been in a retrospective before and you, at the end of the team go, this is what we need to do. If we fix this, it's going to be brilliant. And then you come to the next one and then, nah, we didn't really do it, did we? So what you're trying to do here is you're saying, well, let's use that improvement idea as a goal and let's walk through the same things. Each of us go through, what am I doing, not doing towards that improvement goal? What's the competing commitment that's stopping me doing all this kind of stuff? And what's the big assumption? And then you bring all that together in one kind of super version of it, and you've got all those competing commitments and all those big assumptions. You just leave it anonymous. You don't need to attribute them to anyone. And then share it out to everyone, and they're looking at it going, oh, I can see why we can't improve. It's staring me in the face. And all it is, you're doing like an X-ray on the team. You're going through everything, you're looking right inside and going, this is what the collective team is doing or holding true that's preventing us get to the goal. Now, what's the first thing we can do to test or validate those assumptions that starts to unlock us to that improvement? And that might get us to our improvement then, because we're starting to build our muscle as a team around spotting when we're holding a commitment. We're getting much better at detecting them. So you can do it with a team. Get them to try and find out what those shared competing commitments are as well, because they're really useful. But there will be, as I said, there'll be a scattergun of them all over the place, because we all have our own personal map of the world, our own personal view of reality. But when teams and organisations start to understand their collective immunity to change, that's when they can really start to shift themselves. And it's no longer just wise words and warm words, they're actually improving. So bring it all together. If you're going to do this, and I'm not suggesting you do, I'm just offering it as another tool out there. Always try and identify something meaningful before you even start. If it's not meaningful, it's not significant, and you can't really express the payback to yourself, it's probably the wrong goal. No matter how many times you do this and how many sheets you fill in, nothing's going to change. It's got to be a meaningful goal. Then map your 4 columns of your immunity to change to try and reveal what's going on under the surface. Design these safe to fail experiments and rinse and repeat and run through. And then also look at how you're progressing, whether it's through metrics or how you're all experiencing it, whatever it is, to give yourself that feedback. And as I said, it will gradually dissolve whatever's there. It starts to just dissipate and something takes its place. And the reason this is true is because it's trying to use a combination of all of these things. I've tried to stay away from the woo-woo stuff, but this is a bit woo-woo now. So it's saying at the head and the heart level, we want to use our rational analysis. And by doing this kind of stuff, we're getting much better at keeping our rational brain in the conversation. We also want to use our emotional awareness. So that's the heart bit, like, how am I experiencing this? I'm going to say the F word now. How am I feeling this? So you are using the emotional bit and the intellectual bit at the top. Then the gut is where the goal is. If it's not really in your gut, I want to do this, it's the wrong goal. So go back and do the goal. And then finally, hands-on, start to experiment. Run the experiments, get some feedback, and that starts to do it. It's that adage of action without reflection is just action. And reflection without action, it's not going to get you anywhere. You need the two. You need to do something, then reflect on it, and do something and reflect on it. And you'll find slowly but surely you'll gradually move away. So that was all I was going to cover today. I've got a little bit of time left. I can't take credit for this. So a lot of this work is by 2 great people called Lisa Lahi and Robert Keegan. That's my well-thumbed copy of their book. It's a bit of a go-to for me when I've got teams that are just spinning. If you really want to dig into this, they go into a lot more detail about how we perceive subjective and objective realities, different levels of complexity of thinking, all sorts of really, really wise stuff that builds on it. But I wanted to share this today because it's a lighter tool that you can take away and hopefully, even on a personal level, get some use from it. But thank you very much for your time and participation, and I'm open for any questions if you have them.